My name is Laura Thomas. I'm a candidate for district attorney. A year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I turned to my husband and said, I'm going to run for district attorney. And he said, what if you lose? And I said, what if I don't run? This office needs a leader. This is the first time in 36 years this has been an open position. The last 4 of our 5 DAs were appointed by the governor and ran as incumbents. So this is the first opportunity we've had in a long time to actually run based on experience and merit and the opportunity. And that's important to us because the district attorney needs to lead. I've been a district attorney as an assistant in the office since 1987, starting right here in Guthrie. When I talked, I didn't just say I'm going to run and decide. I talked to people. I talked to the people that meant a great deal to me and who I respected. I talked to Rob Hudson. I talked to Frank Davis. I talked to my God to ask him if I was choosing the right path and journey, and made the decision to run. And it's exciting to run because of what you can bring to the district attorney's office. The district attorney is more than just the prosecutor of criminal cases. That is a primary function, but the district attorney can do so much more. One of the things that I really want to do with the office is expand our reach into the community. I want to expand a focus on crimes against the vulnerable. And the vulnerable for us are children and the elderly, because those are victims whose voices are either silent or muted because they're difficult to find them and let them be heard. So I want to expand outreach through education of the elderly as to what financial exploitation and abuse is, so they have an avenue and their caretakers have an avenue to report it. I've run the child support program in these 2 counties for a number of years and have increased child support collections that go directly back to the families of Payne and Logan County over 158% since 2000. Last year alone, we collected $9.635 million that went all completely back to families in Payne and Logan County. That's huge, because if you can remove a family from poverty, you can affect the crime level. That is near and dear to my heart. I will keep the child support program. The district attorney in these 2 counties has always managed the child support program. We now have 2 offices, one in Guthrie and one in Stillwater. Today I brought with me the people who matter to me so much and are my support base, and that is my husband George, who we call the sign man, my oldest daughter Darcy, and a lot of my campaign team. This is Laura Clark, who's originally from Crescent over here, who is actually the designer of much of my information, Becky Jones and Laura Welch, who keep me in track, tell me where to go, who to talk to, and what to say, and what not to do. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to people and tell them what we are about. Many people just think of the district attorney's office as the place where you go to file charges. And it's so much more than that. Last year alone, in Payne and Logan County, we filed 1,400 felonies and 2,900 misdemeanors. And that does not include the thousands and thousands of traffic tickets. So the point of those is to resolve them where we're protecting the community and at the same time preventing future criminal behavior. So it's all about education, and the district attorney has to be a partner in the community. We can't just sit in our office and prosecute cases. We need to reach out. We need to establish programs with the resources we already have that reaches more victims of crime and provides more avenues for victims of crime. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. My name is Jack Bowyer, and I'm also a candidate for the district attorney's position of Payne and Logan County. A little bit of my background: I started basically education in law enforcement in 1971. I have an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree in law enforcement. I have been a police officer. I have been an assistant chief of police. I have been a city attorney. I have been a city judge. And more importantly, I have been with the District Attorneys Association for 22 years, not only in Tulsa County, in Payne County, but in Logan County now. As such, again, thank you all for inviting both of us here. I do appreciate that, for this forum. And as such, I have my family, my wife Linda and my youngest son present, Linda Bowyer and Michael Bowyer, and they're behind me as well. Now, this whole situation with the district attorney's race is this. There does need to be leadership in the district attorney's office, but a district attorney, besides prosecuting cases, needs to be in the pit to know what's going on in the courtroom, to adequately advise their subordinates, the assistant district attorney, and the staff as far as what's going on in the policy. Now, there are several goals that I have as a candidate for assistant district, district attorney. And one of those goals is I want to shorten the time between the occurrence of the crime and the time the case is over, whether that's resolved through plea negotiations or whether that's resolved by trial. Victims need to be made whole, and it doesn't matter, senior victims, children victims, they need to be made whole as soon as possible. And something that takes 2 years to even get to trial is ridiculous. Shorten the time. I also want to expand awareness of victims of domestic abuse. Domestic abuse victims, they're either emotionally or physically harmed through a person that lives with them, a spouse. This cycle of violence needs to change. The victims need to be educated. The victim need to have therapy sessions if necessary to address the emotional trauma. Emotional trauma can last years after a physical trauma. A cut will heal a person's mind that's a victim of an offense. They're still thinking about it years later. Through counseling and therapy, perhaps that would aid and assist in their recovery on the matter. The other thing is when people are injured either emotionally, physically, there's restitution involved. Restitution is utmost besides the well-being of the victim emotionally. Restitution needs to be addressed quickly. And if somebody writes a hot check or runs into your car when they're DUI, there's a $5,000 restitution payment. It is ridiculous to have that payment at $25 a month. That takes forever. That does not put the victim home. I'm an avid supporter, and I've been involved in the Payne and Logan County drug court system for 17 years. People who are drug dependent and or addicts need to receive treatment rather than going to prison. But there comes a point where enough is enough. And you have 3 or 4 time felony convictions, and that person progresses through the stages of a random casual user to being addicted to stealing property so that they can go out and afford their drugs, or they get into the selling of the drugs on the trafficking. Trafficking is such that if you have over a certain quantity, you're going to prison. I believe that I have support from law enforcement in both Payne and Logan counties. And while my opponent might have more experience with murder trials, there is no person, no attorney in this county or in Payne County that's had more jury trial experience than I have. None. Am I getting close?
We have about 5 seconds.
Thank you for your support.
You guys have some good questions coming up, so the first question that we have, and I'll read, Laura, I believe you're up for the first question. Please describe your experience in prosecuting murder cases.
I'm the only candidate in this race who has ever prosecuted a murder case. And a district attorney needs to have prosecuted the worst of the crimes. I've prosecuted about 15 first-degree murder cases. I'm one of only 2 attorneys in Payne County who has ever received the death penalty verdict from a jury. Murder cases are the worst of the cases because they rip the people apart. And this is a case where you will never make the victim or the victim family whole. So what you do is try to gently take them through a very hostile and unfriendly system. My first murder case was right here in Logan County in 1987, where a young guy murdered and raped a girl who was moving to Colorado the very next day to start her very first teaching position. That was our first case. He will never get out of prison. The cases that are nearest and dearest to me have been child homicides, and I've become an expert at child homicides. And again, the worst I've ever had is in Logan County, of a man who beat, stomped, and shook a 2-year-old to death, and the mother supported him. So murder cases are where you remove the worst of the worst from society. My murderers will never get out of prison. The families will never recover from the murder. But that's what leadership is, and that's what district attorneys do. We develop victim witness programs that take victims through the system, that provide them with resources, that provide them with a safe haven, that hold their hand, who cry with them and who pray with them. We remain with those victims for my entire career. I've still been in contact with the victims' families. You don't just go in a DA's office and start trying a murder case. You have to build your skill level up before you can attempt to try a murder case. It's not like trying a speeding ticket. It's not like when you ask 12 people to consider giving someone the death penalty, it takes years of skill, trial, advocacy. And that's one of the things I bring to the table that no other candidate can.
Jack, the question is, please describe your experience in prosecuting murder cases.
My experience in prosecuting murder cases has been involved in the fringe and on the research. I have been second chair involved in one. Laura has me beat hands down as far as that. And there's no question and no doubt as that's concerned. But in order to prosecute any type of case, the burden of proof that the state of Oklahoma has to prove is beyond a reasonable doubt. And ladies and gentlemen, beyond a reasonable doubt on a speeding ticket, you still have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Murder cases are much more complicated. You have the medical examiner, you have the officers involved, but I'm here to tell you, Laura has more experience in trying murder cases than I do. But I have more trial experience. Thank you.
Jack, you'll be speaking first. Next question. Describe your management experience within the district attorney's office.
my management experience within the district attorney's office has started in Tulsa County. I was a team captain with the Tulsa County District Attorney's Office in support of child support, misdemeanors, felony DUI cases, cases involving mental health, cases involving child abuse, as well as juvenile deprived cases or juvenile delinquent cases. And as such, I had a team of 9 attorneys that were working underneath me and several support staff. We went to trial a lot in Tulsa County. Now, in Payne and Logan County, I have been involved with the juvenile division in Stillwater. I was head of the juvenile division, had one support person and other subordinates that aided and assisted in the child support, not child support, but the child laws involving deprived and delinquents. Over here in Guthrie, well, strike that to start with. I was also the director of the District 9 Drug Task Force for approximately 9 years. All the agents that were recruited from Logan County and Payne County were directly under my supervision, what they were doing. Am I still doing good on time?
You got about 2 seconds.
Okay. And as such, management of personnel, I've had private practice, had 3 attorneys working for me when I was in private practice, and a support staff of 5.
Thank you. Laura, the question is, describe your management experience within the district attorney's office.
I started at the bottom and worked my way up. I believe in what General Norman Schwarzkopf and Donald Rumsfeld always say. Before you can lead, you have to follow. And my 30 years of trial experience and 27 for the people in Payne and Logan County, I followed. And then I led. And leadership is not easy. I managed 2 child support divisions that involved 14 staff and $9.6 million in child support and a budget slightly under $1 million appropriated by the legislature and DHS. We hire, we fire, we train, we evaluate people and programs. That's what I do. Because Stillwater and Guthrie are 2 of the top performing child support offices in the state, other child support programs literally came to us, their DA did, their boss did, and said, can you fix my program because it does not perform well? We have gone into 5 child support offices, completely analyzed their programs, their processes, their people, their management skills, and changed them, and took them from being low-performing offices to top-performing offices. It is the same thing in the criminal division of the district attorney's office. Tom Lee, 2 months ago, called me over to the office, he's our outgoing DA, and said, I have a program here that's not performing as I want it to perform. It's not bringing in the money it's supposed to bring in. Can you help me fix it? We evaluated what the issues were. We determined if there were personnel issues or process issues or procedure issues, and there were all 3. I gave him one of my staff members because he asked me to, and that program has now rebounded and is performing at a top level. I've had experience all the way from the misdemeanors to the felonies. I manage people, I manage money. The district attorney's budget last year was $3.3 million. $850,000 of that was child supports. Those are appropriated and non-appropriated in grant funds. I know how to manage it because Tom Lee has brought me in and taught me his budget also. So I'm prepared to lead the office.
You're actually going to take the next question as well. I'm going to borrow this. This high-tech stuff. We have many repeat offenders in the system. What do you plan to do with this career criminal?
Remove them. and hopefully keep them removed from society. That's one of my focus areas, the career criminal. They make me very angry because when you have a career criminal, that means we've started in the court system, and I can promise you in the court system, you start, unless it's horribly serious, you start with probation. You start with terms of probations that are designed to detour your criminal behavior and fix whatever problem you have. So I'm painting Logan County on nonviolent offenses. If you end up going to prison, it's because you've literally broken to prison. So when you have repeat offenders, it means they have violated every court order that a judge has sat there and said, you will do this, and they stood there and they said, yes, Your Honor, I will do that. And then they didn't do it. They cannot be trusted, and they need to be removed from society because they steal, they drain our resources, they drain our court time, they harm our community, and they violate our property rights. And I don't want them to do 5 years with 20 suspended. I want them to do 30 years with none suspended. And maybe the prison system will keep them 10 of those years. So they need to be removed from society.
Jack, the question is, we have many repeat offenders in the system. What do you plan to do with the career criminal?
As Ms. Thomas has indicated, repeat offenders are serious offenders. They gradually work their way up and they have 3 or 4 felony convictions. That's mandatory prison time. Mandatory pursuant to Oklahoma state law. However, there are occasions where people are habitual drug offenders and they've never received, whether they went to prison before or not, but they've never received the drug treatment. District Attorney's Office is also about justice and what's the right thing to do. Some of these people need drug treatment. If they can't get it in prison, that's why drug court is a necessary element. If a person has 3 or 4, the first offense is possession of marijuana. That's a misdemeanor, carries up to a year in prison. Second, subsequent marijuana possession carries up to 2 to 10 years. Now, you can put somebody for a second possession of pot in prison? No. But if they have 3 or 4 of those, are you going to send them to prison? You're going to seriously think about that because those folks haven't got the message. That's why it's important that the drug court program offer the opportunity to get some treatment for these offenders. Serious offenders that have 2 or 3 felony convictions in their background, they need to go to prison. But not only do they need to go to prison, what I also do is keep them in prison. And as such, a motion for judicial review, a motion for post-conviction relief, or a motion for commutation of sentence is something that I deal with on a weekly basis. And not only after I send them to prison, of course the judge is the one that makes the judgment, but when those people either through trial or through plea negotiation go to prison, I also keep them there.
You'll actually have the last question.
Okay.
Jack? You'll go first in responding to the question. The question is, how will you enforce school attendance for the children whose parents don't value education?
Very easily. And that's what I've started in Logan County. My staff in Logan County, we have started with the school system giving discussions and input from the school system locally and have requested input. And when kids are absent for school for 10 days, and it doesn't have to be consecutive days, but when they're absent from school and that unexcused, I've started a program here pursuant to state law that the school sends out a letter. If nothing happens, we send out a letter, and then a week later I file charges. There are numerous charges sitting over on my desk that when mom or dad are too drunk or they're too lazy, or they're too intoxicated through narcotics that they don't try to aid their children in at least getting to school, those parents need to be held accountable. And as such, there have been several cases that have started in the prosecution process at this point, and that's because I want to make sure that starting the next school year, that every parent out there knows that they're responsible for the education of their children. And if they can't be responsible, then perhaps Department of Human Services needs to be involved, or law enforcement needs to be involved, because look, everybody that's in this room, sooner or later, we're going to age out, and it's going to be the younger people. And the younger people need to have that education to aid and assist everyone. Thank you.
This is a very difficult problem that keeps growing, and simple prosecution of the parent is not going to solve the problem, because now we are on second and third generation of parents who do not value education. And when you do not value education, you don't send your children to school. You don't teach them the value of education. In child support, we see this every day. We see countless mothers with multiple children from different fathers, all without the benefit of marriage, and they live on the system because they were never taught there was a choice or choices in your life. So what my child support staff and I have done is gone into schools. We go into the family life planning schools and we teach them the realities of the situation, of what your life will be like without an education, and how difficult it is to make it. Prosecuting a parent for misdemeanors, all fine and good. You can give them a fine, you can say, dude, 5 days in jail, and they'll do it in 24 hours. That's not going to make their children go to school. You have to go into the schools. That's part of the partnership and outreach that a district attorney needs to be in the community. They are a powerful voice. They can use that voice to educate and impact future behavior. And the way we do that with compulsory education is go into the school and teach the at-risk kids who are children of parents who don't value education. You teach them they have choices, and the way to exercise them is through education. It doesn't cost us any more money. It's my staff and it's on our time. The teachers welcome our input because teachers care about children just like we do. So my intervention would be a little different. It would go to the root of the problem and try to solve that.
That was going to be the last question. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please thank Laura Austin Thomas and Jack Bowyer for their time up here.